students. In this video, I start up with the determinants of classical conditioning. In the previous video, I had taught you about what is classical conditioning, what is its utility in our daily life. Today, we'll study about how this strong and quickly we learn the responses in the classical conditioning. What are the factors which affect it? Okay, students, just see the three determinants of classical conditioning. First is time relation between these stimuli, type of unconditioned stimulus, and intensity of conditioned stimulus. Now we will take up this one by one. First, we will talk about forward conditioning. Okay, in this there are three types of conditioning in forward conditioning: simultaneous conditioning, delayed conditioning, and trace conditioning. So first let's see what is simultaneous conditioning. See, when these conditioned stimulus and unconditioned stimulus are presented together, it is called simultaneous conditioning. What was the unconditioned stimulus in the Pavlov experiment? Food. Okay, and what was the conditioned stimulus in the Pavlov experiment? If you remember, I had explained in the last video. It was bell. Okay, so when these both are presented together, then it is called simultaneous conditioning. Now let's see the next one, that is delayed conditioning. In delayed conditioning, children, the onset of the CS precedes the onset of, that is, the CS ends before the end of the US. That is, a bell begins to ring and continues to ring till the food is presented. This type of conditioning, children, gives a good result. Okay, then next is trace conditioning. Trace conditioning is the onset and the end of the CS, means giving and removing the CS precedes the onset of the US with some time gap between the two. That is, both the stimulus are given with the interval of time in between. Now we'll see backward conditioning. In this, the US, that is unconditioned stimulus, precedes the onset of the conditioned stimulus. It means that we are presenting US, that is, let it be the food, for a long time, and after some time we present the sound of the bell. Will it have any effect? Sometime. In 99.9% cases, it is not going to have any effect. See, it's just take an example from your daily life. If you are first given the food of your choice, okay, and after that food you are asked to eat which you don't like, so will you do it? You will not. That is not going to affect you anyways, isn't it? So this type of conditioning occurs in a very rare cases. Okay, students, now we'll discuss the second factor, that is the type of unconditioned stimulus. See what happened, there are two types of unconditioned stimulus which have been used in the classical conditioning experiments. First is appetitive stimulus. This elicit the response, just naturally it is going to elicit the response, like eating and all, which gives you pleasure and satisfaction, or someone is patting you something on your back, praising you and so on and so forth, then that gives you satisfaction and pleasure and you learn. But it has been found that classical conditioning through appetitive stimulus is slower and it requires greater number of trials. The other type of stimulus that is used in classical conditioning is aversive stimulus. This aversive unconditioned stimulus is example you can take as noise or some painful injection, bitter taste, electric shock. All these are examples of unconditioned aversive stimulus. Now, these will create a response which will be of avoidance or escape, as these stimulus are very painful and harmful. And you would be surprised to know that the conditioning with these stimulus is faster. Okay, now the third point is intensity of the conditioned stimulus. More intense the conditioned stimulus are more effective in getting the conditioned response. This in other words means that fewer number of trials will be required if the intensity of the conditioned stimulus is more. Example, if the painful shock is more, which is beyond the control of the person, then it is going to create the conditioning faster. Okay, so with this I finished this topic of determinants of classical conditioning in this video.